Hi, I'm Frankie. Today, I would like to share with you my experience delivering public talks on business education in the knowledge-based economy, and at the same time, sharing sessions on the practice of knowledge management in China. This entire mission took place from the 27th of February to the 16th of March 2001, and that is 15 years ago. And this entire mission was organized by Guangdong Service Center for Scholarly Exchange. And of course, at this point, I need to just say thank you to the person that assisted in organizing and coordinating all the activities pertaining to this mission. And the head of the center are here, it's Mandy Liu. Now, first of all, this mission was divided into two parts. Part one of the mission was related to delivering 8 public talks in 6 major destinations in China. And the destinations included for the matter, first Nanning, second Yulin City, third Shanghai, fourth Qingdao, fifth Weifang, and sixth Jinan. So these were the 6 major destinations that I delivered the public talks. Now, essentially, these public talks were relating to talking about the relevancy of business education in the emerging knowledge economy. And the talk centered on these few topics. First, on one side, we are now talking in 2001 at that point of time, the emergence of the global knowledge economy. And the questions then we asked were, first, what is the impact of the knowledge economy on business education? In other words to say, are there any special skills that business graduates must have in order that they can cope with this knowledge economy? Or number 2, as knowledge workers or potential workers, what are the special competency they need to really prepare themselves? And of course, on the side of the business education is really about supplying graduates that are relevant to the economy. So what kind of curriculum must be incorporated into the business degrees, whether it is a first degree, a second degree, or a doctorate for the matter? What kind of curriculum must be incorporated so that they'll be able to generate and to produce business graduates that are totally relevant to this emerging economy that we always talk about at that point of time as the knowledge-driven economy. So these were a lot of topics that we included in this series of public talks, and those people that attended the public talks were, firstly, a majority of them were professional parents, many of them learned people, and there were also lots of government officials that attended all these public talks here. And on an average, the number of participants ranged from 200 to about 500 people. And of course, the other groups of people that were in the talk are those students. Some of those are pre-university students. Some of those were actually already graduates or postgraduate students, trying to find out what kind of skills they need so that they'll be able to be successful in this emerging knowledge economy. So those were the 8 public talks that I delivered in this 6 destination. That was on one side. And the other part of it, the second part of the mission, were related to collaborative and sharing sessions. And they were very small focus groups of 5 to 20 people. And these sharing sessions took place in 5 major institutions, including Jinan University, South China University of Technology, Shanghai University, private Hualien University, and the other one is an institute, the Guangdong Tourism Institute. All right, now, and the topics that we talk about were different. Here, the topics we will look at were, firstly, your university, and it goes like this, you know, your university, what are you doing about generating knowledge relating to modules on the practice of knowledge management, or indeed, is your university doing anything, research paper, findings relating to knowledge management for the matter. And one of the most common topics that we debated during all these 5 sharing sessions were knowledge management. Is it driven by the corporates, or is it driven by university? So what does it really mean to say is, are the universities learning from the corporates, or are the corporates or the corporate sectors learning from the universities? Throughout the entire session, my mindset then was, surely universities around the world, they are learning from the corporate sector and not the other way around. And until today, 2016, my belief is the same. Knowledge management is a topic, or is a subject that's driven by private sector, by corporates. Corporates are the institutions that generated all the, and still generating, of course, a lot of best practices and then lots of lessons learned, and universities adopt lots of this as their case study, the way forward. And that's my belief. All right. So today's sharing session is going to be informal, and it represents my beliefs in this area. Now, so these were the 5 institutions that I went to during this period of time to facilitate collaboration sessions and discussion sessions relating to the practice of knowledge management in both private and public educational institution. Question is this: why in the first instance was this mission created? The truth of the matter is, this mission was created against a very unique backdrop at a point of time way back in 2001 in China. Now let me share with you my analysis of what was happening then in 2001 in China. And in front of me is the analysis that I've done 15 years ago. I want to narrate to you some of the findings I had at a point of time. Now, during the period of 2001, way back in China, lots of people, especially those corporate sector professionals in those coastal cities like Shanghai, like Shenzhen, were talking a lot about China's modernization drive. They were talking about the effort, the mega initiative that China was taking at that point of time to drive the country, to move the country forward. Now, based on my analysis, this is my personal observation and opinion, the China modernization drive was driven by, to me, 3 mega pillars. Now, pillar number 1 is what I would refer to as the 10th 5-year plan for national economic and social development. And this plan covered the period 2001 to 2005. That was the first pillar at a point of time that was put in place to drive China's modernization initiative 15 years ago. The second pillar was this: Western development strategy. When we say Western development strategy, the term Western refers to Western region of China. And that was the second mega strategy, which I'll elaborate a bit afterwards. The third strategy there was, I look at it as a third pillar that was driving the modernization initiative of China, was the opening of China's market. And this, of course, got to do with China being later as a member of WTO. Let me just focus on the first pillar. To make the first pillar happen at a point of time, the government at a point of time in China, they were focusing on grossly enhancing infrastructural investment. They were focusing then on enhancing domestic demand and looking at technological upgrading, creating what we call as a positive, strong environment for non-state businesses, including listing of non-state firms. So those were the strategy that were put in place to support the first pillar. The second, Western region development strategy. Now put it factually. The truth is, 56% of China's territory is actually in the Western region. And the Western region consists of 50% of mineral resources of the country. So obviously at a point of time, 2001, to move the country ahead, they were capitalizing a lot on natural resources relating to this region. And obviously at the same time, what happened at a point of time was they were putting lots of initiative to pioneer giant and mega infrastructural projects, specifically gas pipelines, water diversion projects, power transmission, railway constructions. All these are huge billion-dollar mega projects. The third pillar I talked about just now was opening up of China's market. And of course, in the early 2001, everybody were talking about anticipating when China will become a member of WTO. And of course, in hindsight, we know that China became a member of WTO on the 11th of December 2001. And being a member of WTO, World Trade Organization, indeed was a very bold, great decision that China made to open its door to international trade. Now, supporting all this I've described, at a point of time, China was also focusing on what we call as enhancing and advancing financial infrastructure, developing financial and strengthening financial institution, at the same time making and strengthening the entire financial system in the country, and looking into a development of skilled people, skilled professionals, especially in the areas of accounts, in the area of finance, in IT, in marketing, preparing herself for what we call as the emerging knowledge-based economy. Now that was the backdrop at a point of time in 2001. So surely at a point of time when I delivered public presentation, public talks on business education in the knowledge economy, surely many of the learned parents, government officials were pretty interested to know what is the connection, what is the impact of economy and on the structure of business education, and what must business education be doing to make themselves really relevant to these challenging trends of this particular economy. That was the backdrop. Now, my observation, in actual fact, based on my experience in China and in this period, during this period of time, and also collectively looking at all the 8 major talks I've delivered, conclusion is this. In fact, my observation is most of the observations I made for all these talks were very consistent, and I will share this with you. I've done this analysis, I've written this down, prepared this here, and it goes like this, you know. First, consistently in all my talks, the audience, whether they were like 100 people or 500 people, the first major observation, they were extremely attentive, very focused on my delivery. Secondly, quite surprising to me, but that was what was happening then, a lot of them, during my presentation, the talks, some of them lasted until 4 hours. The shortest one is about 2 hours, so it's about 2 to 4 hours. Quite surprisingly, but that's the fact that I observed, was many of them I saw were taking notes during public delivery, during my public talks. There was very great sign, very encouraging sights that I observed. And what happened was that, and for every of the talks, after delivering the session, I would then have a Q&A session. And very amazing. During consistently all the Q&A sessions, a lot of questions were asked. And whatever answer that I gave them, even some of them could be quite lengthy, they just stayed back. They just listened to the answers, really paying full attention. And one of the other things that I observed was, there were quite a number of them. During my sessions, during the Q&A sessions, I observed were actually using electronic dictionary to check out meanings of the words that I use. Very encouraging signs, you know. And many questions were raised during the sessions concerning 3 areas. One, many of them showed interest relating to China's modernization drive. In fact, many of them also openly asked me why, as a foreigner, you seem to know a lot about what China is doing, you know. And the second question that were commonly raised was relating to potential careers for the kids, of course, for the children, and of course some of them, the students, asking for themselves, what are the potential careers in the knowledge-driven economy, and what are really some of the skills that are required. And the most common answers I always provide them at the point of time were this: first, to really make it good, first, you must really be self-driven, proactive, collaborative, innovative. I've repeated it many times during my talks. And most important, I keep highlighting the importance of knowing how to manage your own critical knowledge so that you'll be able to drive your own sustainable performance. And I have stressed many times in all my talks that for emerging knowledge workers, for emerging innovative knowledge professionals, it's very essential for all of you to be able to drive own performance instead of being chased by superior to deliver performance. And the third area they focus a lot was on the structure of business education, and always repeatedly asking questions as to like, how do you know, how do you analyze which business degree would be a more relevant degree? There were lots of this kind of questions, and quite amazing, to most of them, investing money in business education was never an issue. Yeah, the cost factor generally was not a key area of concern. So overall, based on the observations I made, these people, they were very enthusiastic. If I were to do a ranking or a rating out of 10 points, I would easily put them 0.9, 9 out of 10, high level of enthusiasm. So that 8 public presentations in the 6th destination in China, to me was pretty motivating, very encouraging. However, the scenario was slightly different. During my sharing sessions with the 5 institutions, because the topic that we talked about was related to the role of university pioneering practice of knowledge management modules, pioneering researchers in the areas of knowledge management. Essentially, at the point of time, my observations were, firstly, all the 5 institutions that I visited, generally, they have fairly low knowledge of knowledge management. And secondly, many of them were asking questions as to the difference between information management and knowledge management. And some were just looking at around the world, which are the universities that do have degrees in knowledge management, because the mindset was more of wanting really to see how they can capitalize, leverage on modules or on curriculum already developed in the area of knowledge management. So generally, for all the 5 sharing sessions collectively, it did not meet, or at the point of time did not meet my intended objective. Though of course I learned that many of them had plans to do something about the practice of knowledge management and how it should be included into their future curriculum. That was the overall scenario. So what happened was that based on in this case, you can see on the excitement that was shown in this 8 public presentation. So what I did was that I duplicated and then took the content of all these 8 presentations in these 6 destinations, and what I did was I took the content and I repeated the same public talks 2 weeks later. I entered the mission on 16th of March. 2 weeks later, I duplicated these talks, but now in Taipei, Taiwan. So in Taipei, Taiwan, I delivered the same talks. Public talks on business education in the knowledge-based economy from the 28th of March to the 31st of March 2001. Of course, the difference that I observed was this. First, the group was much bigger here, 100 people to 500. Here, very much smaller group, 20, 30 people. And that was the background. And my observation then was this. The most important observation was the enthusiasm level was significantly lower here compared to the one that I had in China. And on hindsight, looking at the scenario, obviously, first, the background was a bit different. What was happening in China was different. They were talking a lot about economic drive. It was different. Though yes, at a point of time, Taiwan did have their 10th development plan, a 10-year development plan, but the excitement was different. So the background was different. So I saw there were differences in terms of enthusiasm here. And secondly, I can also imagine this. At a point of time in 2001, China was just opening her door to the world. Yeah? And so because of this reason, I can anticipate and I can realize on hindsight that the amount of knowledge that they're receiving were much lesser, as opposed to the scenario in Taiwan, that the accessibility to information was much easier and that the people there were more informed at a point of time. So yes, they asked questions, yes, they showed interest relating to the impact of knowledge economy on business education, but then to them it was like, that's not that new either. Yeah, I've heard of this before, not that new. So henceforth it accounted for the level of enthusiasm being lower than that I had in the audience in China. So if I rated that just now as a 9 out of 10, I would rate this as probably 6 out of 10. Then later, when I finished my presentation on 31st of March in 2001, what happened was that 2 weeks later, I went to Pakistan. duplicated the same presentations. So I delivered a series of public talks on the same topic exactly, business education in the knowledge-based economy. And I presented in Karachi and Lahore in Pakistan. And the time frame was from 15th of April to 22nd of April 2001. Now, the scenario was even, in terms of dimension of enthusiasm, much lower. Probably I rate them 3 out of 10. Because generally, my observation were first, many of them, or I would say majority of them, generally do not know what is knowledge economy. The audience being the same, they were parents and they were students. And secondly, because they have low knowledge on what is the knowledge economy all about, so they cannot relate as to the impact of knowledge economy on the structure of the business education. And one very obvious observation that I made is this, here, majority of the questions asked were relating to, first, the cost of business education. And they were just asking on the basic structure of a business education, not so much of relevancy of business education to whatever emerging economy. So I've done it on the 15th of April, right until 22nd of April 2001 in Pakistan. And then subsequently, 1 month later, I was invited back to China. And in China this time, I delivered this public talk on knowledge management in the new economy. And this talk took place in Shenzhen, China on the 30th of May 2001. And it was organized by the Shenzhen Daily Press in China. And this was really mind-boggling. Why? Because I had nearly 300 participants in this public talk. Of course, the talk was on the practice of knowledge management in the context of the knowledge economy. The enthusiasm there were great. Number one. Many of the people in the talks, they were from Hong Kong. They are Hong Kong people, were working professionally in Shenzhen, and some of them having businesses in Shenzhen and traveled like every day, and some travel like every week. And so many of them have heard about the knowledge economy. They have heard about even knowledge management. So the questions raised were pretty interesting because the level of knowledge on knowledge management, and it was 2001, was pretty high. And so they were asking lots of engaging questions relating to the practice of knowledge management. And that was really a very interesting session. And we stayed very late after the talks to handle many of those queries that was raised at a point of time. But in any case, what happened was that the talk ended quite late at night, and subsequently what happens then 7 years later, or actually 7 years later, I was invited to Hong Kong to deliver talks on the practice of knowledge management. And that was in April 2008, organized by Focus Honor International Hong Kong. Now I really can see the trend, because way back we were just talking about what is knowledge management all about, what are the benefits of the practice of knowledge management, all right, and they also were talking about. But then 2008, when I delivered the talks, the title of the talks I delivered was not on implementing the practice of knowledge management, it was on securing competitive advantage through POKM. And the background was this, and the audience mindset was this, First, you don't have to talk to me about what is POKM. We know. You need to convince me that it is important, and we know this. What we are more interested is how we can bring the practice of knowledge management to the next level. How knowledge management can really be a key strategy to drive profitability, to drive operational excellence. How do you measure this? How do you present to the board that as a result of putting POKM in place, we're able to drive innovation? So it was very different at time frame of 2008 compared to what happened in 2001. And I can see during this period of time, many organizations, those that really have adopted the practice, they have really derived benefit, and they want to look into ways and means to move it to the next level, potentially to ensure that it becomes like a real culture, or a sustainable culture in the organization. And they were talking in 2008 in Hong Kong more of looking at the practice of KM as an organizational development intervention strategy, rather than just trying to put into practice in small groups of people. Because to them it was more like, you know, it must be a business strategy, it must be a way of life, and this must be things that we don't just do one or two people. It must be done concerted effort by everybody. You don't ask questions like, why do you do it? Because if you don't do it, how are you going to survive in this economy? So that kind of background, that kind of tone of the presentation. So over this period of time, things have really changed. Yeah. Today in this informal sharing session, I just want to share with you that based on my observation, the trend indeed have moved. And of course, on my side, standing here today, 2016, my personal focus is over the next 5 years, from now until 2020, is to really focus on sharing practice of knowledge management to companies of all sizes, very specifically in Malaysia. That's my focus over the next 5 years. I started the first presentation way back in 1996, and now it's 20 years down the road. All right, now, so before I sign off, and of course I thank you guys for really listening to me today, and of course taking your time off to be with me in this sharing session. I just want to highlight to you and share with you some of the prospectus here. Why? Because these are the two universities that really I have invested quite a lot of time during my knowledge sharing session, and I have lots of good friends in these two universities. The first one is Jinan University. This is the main entrance. You can see this is where I went. This is the main entrance of the university, Jinan University, where I actually had quite fruitful discussion, though as I said earlier on, did not really meet my entire expectation. All right, and this is the other part, of the blocks of the university here. All right, now, okay. So this you can see is Jinan University, and the one that actually I went to for my collaboration discussion was the College of Economics. This is the one. All right, this is the college I went to discuss about and to exchange ideas relating to the practice of knowledge management. And you can see inside here, this is the block that I went. This is the actual one that I went to. Yeah, this is the block that I went to. All right, okay. This is the College of Economics here. And the other one, I was pretty impressed. Yeah, the other one I was pretty impressed is this private university. I spoke to the founder, and we have a good conversation. And this is the private Hualien University. Right? This is a private, and it's quite amazing. It's quite a huge place. And I had a good sharing session with the head of the university, and you can see in this prospectus they actually have a long explanation, interpretation of the logo of the university here. It's a privately funded university, okay, and it's a huge university for the matter here too. All right, now, and the other one you can see this the other brochure. This is in Mandarin. Okay, all right. The same university, the same university that I went to, and then next to the university, they also have two other universities next to the private Hualien University. Here it says that Hualien Experimental School of Foreign Language, and one is the Nanchang Hualien Foreign Language and Art Experimental School. It's quite cool, quite innovative, you know. This university, besides being very huge in terms of size, it is also quite innovative. Now you can see that the inner side, you can see this is the one right here, the blocks that we went to. Yeah? Okay. And these are two quite memorable ones that I had when I was in China, facilitating my sharing session in these institutions over here. All right, now just want to share this with you. Okay. And of course, essentially, just to give some credit, this is some of the basic initial research relating to China in WTO was taken from this very book. It's quite good reading. Maybe I give you this so you can see even the author's name should you want to make reference to this. All right, China and WTO. All right, now, so at this point of time, it's really great to have you with me. And of course, I want to say thank you for for taking time off to be with me in this specific sharing session. All right, now, and most important, I look forward. All right, okay. Most important, I do look forward to seeing you in the near future in my future sharing session. And of course, with this is Frankie saying cheers and bye bye.